John Henry Clark, who was a noted historian, would be 90-some years old if he was still alive, said this about history. He said that history is like a clock. It tells a people the historical time of day. It tells where they've been, where they are, and where they yet still have to go.
That have been long dormant.
It's an almost forgotten chapter of Lexington's history.
This is a spot where so much national history is potentially located, and yet it's not really well known about. To me is a shame, and it's something that needs to be better brought out.
I have tried to unbury information about African Americans and bring it to light so that hopefully the full Kentucky narrative will be more inclusive of the contributions that African Americans have made.
That the cemetery has gone through so much neglect, renewal, desecration, vandalism, and it's still there. It's just been amazing that it has survived. I mean, just truly, because so many cemeteries just get wiped away, and this could have been one of them.
Part of the restoration is a continuation of the work that has been laid here by our foreparents. They're taking the task to buy the land and create the cemetery. It was part of a larger effort to create community, create a legacy, create a safe place for their children and their grandchildren.
In October 1852, enslaved men organized to help each other, care for the sick, bury the dead, and perform other acts of charity. This is before emancipation.
This was a benevolent society, meaning they didn't get paid to do this. And they didn't say to get paid to take care of the poor, to get paid for any of those things. They said that that was what they were supposed to do.
And they paid for that in 2 months. How is it that these people who are supposed to be ignorant, who had no education or very little education, knew enough to say, yes, we matter, and we're going to show you we matter? They band together, they formed the school committees, they formed the self-help organizations that moved African Americans who had newly been freed out of enslavement and poverty. And our cemetery holds the remains of all economic stratas of the African American community. And some of the stones are so beautiful, they were just, to me, exquisite. I mean, it's amazing because they were produced in a time when they were handcrafted. They weren't poured in a mold or had a standard pattern. Almost every stone in there is different. There were people who had friends and relatives who actually handcrafted the monuments, and to me, that said more than having the money to buy one.
There's an African saying that when an elder dies, a library closes.
So the cemetery, I think, represents that sense of post-emancipation need to build community, this post-emancipation period of renaissance of saying, well, even though we're faced with all kind of Jim Crow laws and the night riders and the KKK and all kind of examples of oppression and racism, we still have to build community.
I'm coming back to my baby, but I'll have the Lexington Kentucky Blues.
And they had used probably all the available burial spaces. The area around them had been developed, the railroad track behind them, the Loudon Avenue subdivision. So they were encroached. There was no way to go.
As society changed, integration started to take place. The community in this neighborhood started to change. The African Americans here started to move to other sections of the town.
I think the last records that they have where they had any interaction with that group was in 1932.
And that's when the majority of the early organizers and the subsequent generation after them started.
It was in many ways just disregarded and disrespected.
Because nobody was taking care of it. Residents were complaining about the vagrants in and out of the cemetery, about the unkept condition, and the newspaper would have a picture in the paper every year showing how unkept it looked. The weeds were higher than the cars. I mean, truly, you couldn't even see. You wouldn't know that it was a cemetery except they said it was. And even though cemetery number 2 became neglected and it was overgrown because there wasn't a generation that stepped forward to save it, it still remained. Unfortunately, the cemeteries in Lexington, the city decided in '79, after they had merged, to declare the land abandoned and sell portions of it for development and keep a small part for a park. They were going to remove all the bodies and remove the headstones and place them in another location. People in the community had heard what was going on, and they were not happy. And when it was truly threatened, there were individuals in this community who knew the value of the cemetery and stepped forward. We shouldn't allow it to be desecrated. We shouldn't allow it to be considered abandoned and bodies disinterred. This is not how we respect our dead.
And we came in here and we started just trying to make the place presentable.
Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water, wade in the water, children.
It's important that we keep this early reminder of who we are, where we've come from, and how we progressed.
What we're trying to do is create this greater sense of awareness in the community. Part of our work early on was just to bring young people in here and have them walk in here and get over the fear of being in the cemetery. It's always glorious to come in here with young people and have them discover things and see what they connect up with.
This cemetery is sort of like a time machine. When you're out on 7th Street, you're out on the road, on the sidewalk, and there are big heavy trucks going by and a lot of traffic and everything. But the minute you come through those gates, it gets quiet and peaceful, and you hear the birds and the wind blowing through the trees. And it's a different atmosphere the minute you cross that line. And you look around and you see the markers and you read the inscriptions. And these are the people, some of the people, that helped build this town long before I lived here. So we owe these people a debt of gratitude and respect. And helping to maintain the cemetery is how I...
They established the cemetery. It was up to a next generation, and sometimes it skips a generation. I happen to be that person. There is a poem that says every tribe has a storyteller, and each storyteller's responsibility is to tell the story of those who've gone before you. And that's what I do.
The world's a good place, and our only purpose on it is to do good work.